CNN's Kara Scannell is outside of the courthouse. Kara, tell us what happened.
So, Brianna, the judge has set a May 5th trial date for Sean Diddy Combs to face those charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation of prostitution. Now, Diddy was in court today. He entered the courtroom wearing a jail-issued outfit, a khaki long-sleeve shirt, pants. He was also shackled at the ankles. His family members were in the courtroom, his mother and most of his children. He had waved to them, blew a kiss to his mother, and one of his sons had raised and flexed his arm, his bicep, as though to show a sign of strength. Now, this hearing was mostly about procedural issues, working through some of the evidence in the case. Prosecutors said they collected 96 devices back in that March search of Combs' homes in Los Angeles and Miami. And when they searched him on his person, they said they've begun going through them, encrypting some of them and giving them back to the defense. That will take some time. There are going to be some motions in this case. One of those was addressed today. Now, if the judge does not need them back in court, the next time we will see Combs back in court will be in December. Brianna?
And this comes after his legal team made some pretty stunning accusations, Kara, about that now infamous video of Combs beating his former girlfriend as she tried to leave a hotel room. What exactly are they saying?
Yeah, that was one of the issues that was teed up yesterday for this hearing today, and that's what they spent a lot of time on in the courtroom. Combs' attorneys had asked for an investigation into leaks, saying that they believe the government...
In the world of entertainment, where controversies often dominate the headlines, a new drama is brewing around some of the biggest names in the music industry.
Of the video, but also of the searches at his homes in March. But this video is something that the prosecution said that there's no need for this. They have said that they did not obtain this video until after CNN has aired it. Obviously, we're CNN. We have declined to comment on these allegations, but the prosecution said that they did not have this until after it was already made public by us and that there's no need for an investigation. Said this is just an attempt to try to keep a damning piece of evidence out of this case. Now, the judge said he is not going to decide today on whether they should have a hearing. He's going to let the sides file their legal briefs and their legal arguments on this. But one thing that Combs' lawyers did ask for is what they called a gag order. They want the prosecution to be stopped from talking about any grand jury evidence in this case or any non-public evidence. Now, prosecutors never really discussed that publicly before a trial. And the judge said, in fact, that because that is the rule, he said, is there any harm in imposing this? And the prosecutor had asked the judge to make it reciprocal to stop Combs' lawyers from saying anything more about any of the evidence in this case. They cited an interview that Combs' lawyer had given to TMZ in which he suggested that the government was trying to, he accused the government of making a takedown of a successful black man. They said they wanted him to stop talking about that. Combs' lawyer said that if this does go into place, these restrictions on statements, he would abide by it. So the judge asked him to draft what this order would be, send it to him, and he would sign it. So we will learn in the coming days of exactly the contours of what they're...
This time, it's the queen of pop herself, Beyoncé, who has been thrust into the center of a heated debate. A leaked audio recording allegedly featuring Beyoncé has caused a storm online, linking her to P. Diddy, a man currently facing serious trafficking charges.
Cassie Ventura's public comments coming just days after CNN exclusively obtained the graphic surveillance footage. CNN's Elizabeth Wagmeister broke the story and has this follow-up on Ventura's reaction. We want to warn our viewers, some of the images in her report are disturbing.
Cassie Ventura breaking her silence for the first time. On Instagram, Ventura thanking family, friends, and strangers, writing, "The outpouring of love has created a place for my younger self to settle and feel safe now. But this is only the beginning. My only ask is that everyone open your heart to believing victims the first time." The surveillance video from 2016 also shows Combs throwing a vase at then-girlfriend Ventura in the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel. The security camera footage seeming to corroborate part of Ventura's 2023 lawsuit against Diddy, alleging he punched Miss Ventura, giving her a black eye, then took glass vases in the hallway and threw them at her. The lawsuit, since settled, also referenced this.
I gotta give a special thank you.
A 2022 acceptance speech in which Combs spoke of Cassie in a much different light.
Cassie, for holding me down in the dark times. Love.
But now, with the ugly truth of his abuse caught on video, Diddy took to his own social media Sunday to respond.
I hit rock bottom.
but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
The allegations continue to pile up against Combs. This week, former model Crystal McKinney filed a lawsuit alleging Combs drugged and sexually assaulted her in 2003. And Combs still faces possible charges related to those federal raids on his homes in March.
The audio, which is rapidly spreading across social media platforms, has ignited conversations among fans, critics, and gossip enthusiasts alike. In the recording, a voice believed to be Beyoncé's admits to attending Diddy's infamous parties but firmly denies any knowledge of illegal activities that may have taken place there.
Hotel video from 2016 won't lead to new charges because the statute of limitations expired. Cassie didn't address the video directly, but did say, "Domestic violence is the issue. It broke me down to someone I never thought I would become." Advocates say cases like Cassie's are helping to turn the tide for victims of abuse.
It means that people who were too scared, they were too young, they felt that they'd be disbelieved long ago, but whose lives were altered, now have an ability to come forward and seek legal redress.
Cassie speaking directly to those victims, writing, "I offer my hand to those that are still living in fear. No one should carry this weight alone."
Now, when Cassie filed her lawsuit back in November, it was filed under what is called the New York Adult Survivors Act. That is a law that created a look-back window for victims of abuse whose alleged incidents happened outside of the statute of limitations. Now, Wolf, since this 2016 video is outside the statute of limitations, the DA in Los Angeles has said that they cannot press charges. So it has created this entire conversation of whether that statute of limitations is benefiting the abuser or the victim. Now, I also want to note, lastly, that you may have noticed that neither Cassie or Diddy mentioned each other in their respective statements about this video. Well, Wolf, that's because in their settlement agreement, I have learned from sources they cannot speak about one another.
Interesting. Thanks very much, Elizabeth Wagmeister in Los Angeles, for the excellent reporting. I want to get some more on all of this with CNN entertainment reporter Lisa Respers-France and attorney and legal affairs commentator Ariva Martin. And Lisa, what do you make of, first of all, of this first statement from Cassie since the release of that horrible, horrible, awful video?
I can tell you that she's being hailed by many people for speaking on domestic violence, but also because she really speaks, it seems like, from the heart. When people juxtapose her statement with Diddy's apology from a couple days ago, they're seeing a decided difference. It feels like she really wants to be of service. As Elizabeth mentioned, she reaches out to those who are already, in a similar situation. And I just feel like a lot of people feel for her, but also they are happy that she's speaking up. It should not take a video, having to see a video of someone being abused, to believe the abuse.
Ariva, Cassie doesn't directly reference the brutal video of Combs attacking her in that hotel, but
the controversy couldn't have come at a worse time for Diddy, who is currently facing serious legal trouble. The rapper and music mogul is battling sex trafficking accusations that have shocked the public and rattled the music industry.
Legal cases we are following in this week's Burden of Proof. The family of the late rapper Tupac Shakur has hired a team of investigators to look into what they say is a link between Sean Diddy Combs and the murder of the hip-hop star in 1996. Popular TikTok creator Mr. Prada has been arrested and charged with the second-degree murder of a therapist in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, after claims of the influencer's possible involvement went viral on social media. And two of the officers accused of being involved with the 2020 death of Breonna Taylor have been indicted yet again. So let's bring in former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, Nima Rahmani. Nima, thank you for joining us again on this Sunday. I want to begin with what so many people are talking about, this Tupac investigation. The family of the hip-hop megastar alleging that Diddy may have had something to do with his murder in 1996. They've hired a powerhouse attorney, a team of investigators. What do you make of this?
Well, Phil, these accusations have been going on for quite some time, and Tupac's family has hired Alex Spiro, who is actually handling the defense of Mayor Eric Adams, who we've been talking about. And we all know that Diddy's being prosecuted by that same office. Now, the challenge here is, even though the allegations are that, Combs may have been involved in the 1994 shooting of Tupac that obviously didn't kill him, and then potentially the murder 2 years later, someone else is being prosecuted for this murder right now in Las Vegas, and that's Keefe Davis. He's alleged to be the shot caller in the murder of Tupac. So I'm not sure that this investigation will go too far, especially when someone else is being held criminally accountable for that murder.
Let's move on then to the TikTok star, Mr. Prada. He's been charged, possible involvement in the brutal murder of a 69-year-old therapist. A speculation of their connection, something like 10 million.
He has staunchly denied the allegations, maintaining his innocence and pleading not guilty to all charges. The leaked audio, whether real or fake, has added another layer of complexity to this already chaotic situation, with Beyoncé's name now tangled up in the scandal.
Important for people like Cassie to come forward, because it allows people to be able to see that when you have money and you have power, it can insulate you from things like this. I've said this before, that I'd heard rumors about bad behavior from Diddy for years, but people did not come forward because they were afraid. She was empowered to do so. She filed her suit, and the response that we're seeing, even though there's still some people who are saying, oh, maybe we don't know the whole story, I think overwhelmingly people supporting her is starting to shift the tide, which says that just because you're a man of power, just because you're a person of power, a person who's wealthy, does not mean that you should be able to get away with things like this. So I think we're definitely seeing a bit of a shift in the culture.
Ariva, Combs is facing multiple lawsuits. Federal agents, as you know, recently raided his homes in California and Florida. What does this accountability look like for Diddy from a legal standpoint?
Well, we know, as I just said, was not likely to be any charges filed by him by the Los Angeles County District Attorney, but that Homeland Security raid, that's pretty significant. To have federal agents raid not one but two of your homes and stop you in the airport and to confiscate items from your person means that there is an active investigation, or at least there was one when those raids took place. And we may still see Diddy held accountable in a federal court, because those human trafficking, sex trafficking allegations that are in some of those civil lawsuits, we've been told that they are what the federal investigators are actually looking at as they are investigating his conduct. So it is not clear to me at all that he is out of legal jeopardy as it relates to some kind of criminal accountability. So I think this is a case that's going to continue to perhaps lead to the kind of charges that I think are important and required, given the conduct that we saw in that video.
Yeah, Ariva Martin, Lisa Respers France, to both of you, thank you very much. And to our viewers, if you or someone you know is struggling with domestic violence, you can get help by contacting the National Domestic Violence Hotline, online at hotline.org, or by phone, 800-799-SAFE, S-A-F-E.
As soon as the audio began circulating, social media platforms were flooded with reactions. Some fans of Beyoncé, affectionately known as the Bayhive, were quick to come to her defense, dismissing the audio as a fabrication, possibly the work of AI technology.
Yeah. What kind of role does social media play in a case like this, in pushing a case like this? I mean, kind of in the Diddy and Tupac situation, social media played a role as well. But when it gets the attention of millions, what kind of role are we talking about here?
Well, Phil, it plays a huge role, both traditional and social media. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. We're seeing it right now with the Menendez brothers, for instance, in the Netflix series Monsters. But whenever you have someone that gets a lot of attention, the political reality is every prosecutor in this country is either elected or they're appointed by someone who is. So obviously in this case, the question is, what really is the relationship between Thomas and the victim, Abraham? Now, there's plenty of evidence here. He was driving Abraham's car. He fled the scene. There's video surveillance of him going into Abraham's apartment and then pulling this tarp out. So the question is, if he wasn't a client of the therapist, why would someone be involved in such a gruesome murder? I think that's something that jurors are going to want to know, even though, of course, motive isn't an element of the crime the prosecution has to prove.
Okay, so moving to the new indictments in the death of Breonna Taylor, 2 former Louisville police officers involved are being retried. One of them, Brett Hankison, pre-trial hearing is set to begin this week. But this is the 3rd time this case is being brought forth after a judge declared a mistrial last year. We all remember that. What are you watching for as it unfolds this time?
Well, what I'm watching for is, are the police officers going to be held accountable? And we know how difficult it is in this country to convict police officers. I mean, we saw it just last week with the Tyree Nichols officers just being convicted of obstruction counts. And we all saw that video and how gruesome and disturbing it was. Now, in Breonna Taylor's case, obviously, you have the officer who's shooting outside into the inhabited dwelling. But of course, a little bit more difficult because the officers in that case were shot at first.
Nima Rahmani, thank you so much. Always good to have you break down the cases with us.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
They believe that Beyoncé, known for her public stance on social justice issues and women's empowerment, would never knowingly support or cover up such horrific crimes. For them, the leaked audio is nothing more than an attempt to tarnish her spotless reputation.
But it is a very powerful statement addressing domestic violence as an important issue. So what's your reaction?
Well, one, just kudos to her. Bravo to her for having the courage to speak up after having to be triggered, I'm sure, and to relive the horrors of that video. It was horrible for us to watch it, but she was the person that actually experienced the abuse from P. Diddy for not just, in that one incident, but from what we know from that lawsuit, a repeated course of abuse that she received. And I think what's important about her statement also is hopefully it will encourage states that have opened up their statute of limitations for civil suits for victims of this kind of violence, also to look at those criminal statutes. The district attorney in Los Angeles said there will be no criminal charges despite us witnessing what is criminal conduct on that video. So as we are opening up these statutes for civil suits, and money is good, but criminal conduct needs to be held accountable in criminal court. So I hope we start to see some extension of statutes in states so that victims like Cassie and others can have their day in court and can get justice, and that predators like Diddy will be held criminally accountable.
Lisa, as more disturbing allegations against Combs have been coming to light, it seems to have given strength to other accusers to come forward. What does this say about the changing culture and the responsibility of the entertainment community right now?
Well, Wolf, oftentimes when these things happen, people initially want to say, oh, she's lying, she just wants money.
Why does it sound like she's reading off of something? This is AI nonsense, commented one Twitter user, expressing skepticism. Another fan wrote, Beyoncé would never. She's always stood for what's right and doesn't need to protect anyone involved in something like this.
Well, from music mogul to an inmate, Sean Diddy Combs is denied bail on charges of sex trafficking and racketeering.
TMZ has been following this case for months now, and Charles Lati-Baudier is joining us to dive deeper into what is happening. Charles, shocking is an understatement when you hear the details of this case. What are your thoughts after hearing the indictment yesterday?
Good morning, Brian and Natalie. I got to tell you, my thoughts reading the 14-page indictment yesterday were that there are a lot of people in Hollywood who are probably worried about which Diddy parties they were at and what was going on. That's not to say that they were necessarily even involved in any of the things that are alleged by the U.S. Attorney's Office. But if you're at that party and it turns out that that's when he set up one of these freak-off sex parties, or that it was going on in another room and you didn't know about it, there's a good chance that you're going to be called by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And certainly if you were involved, you would get a call because they're going to want to know everything you want to know and may even want you to be a witness. I just think, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this case this case is going to touch and involve, and the feds have said that this remains an open investigation. There could be more charges for Diddy. There could be more charges for other people involved. And usually the way this works is once they find out other people are involved or were witnesses, they bring them in and they sort of lean on them, and it's sort of like, you're going to cooperate with us, or there's a possibility that you could face charges. So this is going to be a slow developing case here, because we're just getting started. And I don't see how this trial begins anytime before next year.
Now, there are a lot of wild allegations in those documents that came out yesterday, including 1,000 bottles of baby oil. What surprised you the most about what you read yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, that, Brian, was a...
On the flip side, others aren't as convinced. Critics argue that whether or not the audio is real, Beyoncé's close association with P. Diddy raises valid questions. As someone with immense influence in the music industry, should she be doing more to distance herself from someone facing such serious allegations? Is her silence a sign of complicity, or is she simply waiting for more facts to emerge before making a statement?
Graph of the indictment, when you read that when they raided, I believe it was the Miami home, where they found 1,000 bottles of, and they said that these were items that were used at the freak-offs. There were also large amounts of drugs, they said, cocaine, ketamine, Molly, GHB, the rape drug. So, you know, they said that the house, according to the feds, that was stocked for these parties that were going on. And then to read their description of how Diddy, as they say, lured women into joining these parties. And they say that he would meet them or lure them, get to know them, and lure them in thinking they would think that there was going to be a romantic relationship with him. And then it would turn out that they would be at these freak-offs where they would be forced to have, or drugged and forced to have sex with male prostitutes that he was bringing in. And that's one of the counts that he's facing also, is the transportation of individuals for a purpose of prostitution. So really alarming allegations laid out in court. Diddy, of course, has pled not guilty to all of it. And then the real kicker for him at the end of the day was that the judge said you will be held without bail. And that means however long it takes for this trial to begin, he will be in a federal detention facility in Brooklyn, and not a very nice one. In fact, a fairly notorious one. So you got to figure it. He wants out of there, and he wants out as soon as possible.
We're in this era right now, Charles, of men with power falling from grace in Hollywood. And when I think about Harvey Weinstein, you know, that was an open secret in Hollywood for a very long time about what he was doing with victims. Was this also the case with P. Diddy, that people kind of knew this was going on?
Beyoncé is a public figure, and public figures have a responsibility to speak out against injustice, said one Instagram user. We need her to say something. Staying silent when you have this much power is dangerous.
There were always been whispers about his power and how he wielded that power. But I can't say I heard any whispers about these freak-offs, and it's really alarming. You know, we were talking about it yesterday. One, these parties had a lot of individuals. In fact, the U.S. Attorney's Office says that the parties would sometimes go on for days. So there are a lot of individuals involved, and they say this has been going on for more than 10 years, and yet we didn't hear about that. So that means that all the people that were involved, according to the feds, were that he managed to keep them all quiet, that nobody would speak about it. And that does sort of speak to the kind of power he wielded and the fear that people had of him. We're also talking about the fact that the beating of Cassie, which was captured on the hotel surveillance video, that was 6 years ago. And
alleged when Combs
nobody knew about it. Nobody heard about it. Think about all the people that were at the hotel who may have known about it, people who saw the surveillance video and never spoke about it. And like you said, we're in an era where when things like that happen, people speak out about it. So the fact that no one did, and that it only took this, really Cassie's lawsuit before any of this started coming out, it does kind of speak to the power that he wielded, and that the fact that nobody wanted to cross him.
And Charles, what do you think happens next in this case? Members of Sean Combs' family have been ordered to give up their passports. He's currently in jail. What do you think happens from here?
Well, his attorneys, the first thing that's going to happen is today, his attorneys are going back into court. They've appealed the bail ruling. And like I said, I'm sure he wants out, and that's their first job right now, is to get him out. They've offered a $50 million package for bail. That was rejected yesterday, but they're going to take another swing at it today. And then after that, what happens, he did surrender his passport to his lawyer. We should say the way his team put it out originally, they made it sound like he had turned it over to the authorities. He had turned over his passport back in April to his lawyer, as did his children and his mother. And their point was they wanted to make the case to the court that, look, we're cooperating here. He is not a flight risk. And they feel like that the U.S. Attorney's Office undermined that by raiding his hotel on Monday night and arresting him when they say he was in New York because he was more than willing to surrender. In fact, the plan was for him to surrender on Tuesday. And then for some reason, the feds decided to arrest him Monday night. Diddy's attorneys think they did that so that it would look like he wasn't cooperating, and then the judge would deny him bail, which, as it turns out, is what happened.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for your thoughts on this morning. You guys always have so much information behind the scenes there. It is 7:13 a.m. in Los Angeles. Thanks for waking up early with us.
Absolutely. We're up early every day. So
okay, thank you,
You can always
sir.
reach us here.
Sounds good.
Beyoncé's predicament highlights a broader issue that extends far beyond this particular situation, the role of celebrities in social and legal controversies. When someone like Beyoncé, whose influence transcends music, is linked even tangentially to a scandal, it raises questions about the responsibilities that come with such prominence.
His $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering charges. He is not the first high-profile inmate to pass through these walls. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, and crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, all as they waited for their federal criminal trials, called this jail home. But the conditions of the prison are far from homey, notoriously described as, quote, dreadful, as one judge put it. Some on the bench have even moved away from sending nonviolent defendants there. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 shivs were recovered from the attack. You see them here. The victim survived. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by suicide. And violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees.
I've had clients describe MDC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide there. A Bureau of Prisons spokesman telling NBC News they, quote, take seriously addressing the staffing and other challenges at MDC Brooklyn, adding the director appointed an urgent action team and they've increased staffing.
The MDC has historically had tremendous problems and the problems aren't resolved.
And Combs' attorneys are appealing for Combs to be released to his home on $50 million bail. In the meantime, they're asking to transfer Combs to a prison in New Jersey, but so far the rapper remains behind bars in Brooklyn. His next court appearance, guys, is October 9th.
I mean, let's be honest. He's in jail. It's unpleasant. It's supposed to be punitive. The question is, how do they keep him safe? Given everything that happened with Jeffrey Epstein, they are under a lot of pressure to make sure nothing happens.
He is in a special area in the prison that is for people that are VIPs to make sure that he is kept safe. But it is not a good place.
Jasmine, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.
Should stars like her be expected to immediately denounce individuals like P. Diddy in the wake of allegations, even before the legal process unfolds? Or do they have the right to wait until all the facts are clear before making any public statements?
My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
This morning, Sean Diddy Combs is breaking his silence.
I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now.
Combs stepping out in Miami the same day he posted the apology on Instagram. The assault appears to match an incident described in a lawsuit Ventura filed against Combs in November that alleged that Combs became extremely intoxicated and punched Miss Ventura in the face, giving her a black eye. At the time of the lawsuit, an attorney for Combs denied Ventura's allegations, calling them outrageous and offensive. They reached a settlement within 24 hours. But in Combs' video Sunday, he now admits the abuse and claims he went to therapy and rehab after this assault.
I went and I sought out professional help. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry.
In a statement, Ventura's attorney said Combs' apology is more about himself than the many people he has hurt, that he was only compelled to apologize once his repeated denials were proven false, shows his pathetic desperation. Despite the graphic video, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office says they cannot charge Combs with a crime in connection to this specific incident because California's statute of limitations has passed. But Combs is facing multiple civil lawsuits with allegations including abuse and sexual assault, which Combs has denied. He is also under federal investigation. His California and Florida properties were raided in March, but he has not been charged with any crime.
Representatives for Sean Combs did not respond to our request for comment. Now, in November, that lawsuit that Cassie had filed, she alleges that Sean Diddy Combs paid the hotel $50,000 for that hallway security footage that you just saw. But in a statement to NBC News, IHG Hotels and Resorts said, quote, "This hotel is no longer under IHG management, and we do not have any access to prior incident records or footage," adding that they did not receive money for this footage.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.
In the age of social media, fans often expect instant responses. A single tweet or Instagram post can make or break a public figure's reputation, and silence is frequently interpreted as guilt or complicity. For Beyoncé, who has cultivated a brand based on empowerment and advocacy, the stakes are incredibly high.
Sean Diddy Combs' investigation. New surveillance video shows Combs being taken into custody in a Manhattan hotel last week. Our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Kotursky, is at the scene of his arrest. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning to you, Robin. This is the hotel where Sean Combs was arrested a week ago. You can now see how that arrest went down. This morning, watch how federal agents took Sean Diddy Combs into custody. He's seen in this video entering the Park Hyatt Hotel in Midtown Manhattan with others when agents from Homeland Security Investigations approach and separate him. They place Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs. His lawyer said Combs had come to New York 2 weeks earlier with the intention of turning himself in. He did not expect the agents to be waiting at his hotel last Monday night.
Why doesn't the government want him to turn himself in? Because then they can't ask for detention. So they go and they arrest him. They arrest a guy who came to New York to turn himself in. 1, 2, 3.
A day earlier, Combs seen out and about in New York with his family, seemingly in good spirits. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and prostitution charges. At the center of the case, this 2016 video obtained by CNN that depicts Combs attacking his then-girlfriend, the singer Cassie, and then dragging her back toward a hotel room. Federal prosecutors said the video is powerful evidence of how dangerous the hip-hop mogul could be to women, part of why 2 different federal judges denied him bail.
This has to be a 100% culture shock. I can't imagine living a lifestyle of the incredibly rich and famous and then going into this very dark, impersonal, cold, austere facility.
Combs, who lived in this $50 million Miami mansion, is now in an isolated unit of a federal jail in Brooklyn known for miserable conditions.
The special housing unit is a 24-hour lockdown unit, which means that any movement within that unit is controlled and coordinated, and no inmate moves outside of his cell without being in full restraints, to include leg irons, handcuffs, a belly chain, and at least 2, if not 3 staff members escorting them.
When Combs first arrived at jail, he was monitored for suicide. That's common for any high-profile inmate. But his attorney says Combs is not suicidal. Rather, guys, he's focused on defending himself. guys.
All right, we'll see what happens going forward. Aaron, thank you.
The public is watching closely, and any misstep could lead to a backlash that's difficult to recover from. Some have pointed out that Beyoncé's decision to remain quiet thus far could be strategic. Given the severity of the charges against P. Diddy, her team might be advising her to hold off on any public statements until the legal process plays out.
According to Ventura's now settled lawsuit, the pair began dating several years after they met in 2005. They parted ways in 2019. Combs' attorney said the decision to settle was in no way an admission of wrongdoing. Ventura declined to comment on the video, but her attorney told CNN the gut-wrenching video has only further confirmed the disturbing and predatory behavior of Mr. Combs. Words cannot express the courage and fortitude that Miss Ventura has shown in coming forward to bring this to light. The video hasn't been seen publicly before, and comes on the heels of a series of civil lawsuits alleging Combs' involvement in sex trafficking and sexual abuse, allegations that Combs has repeatedly denied. Authorities searched Combs' homes in Los Angeles and Miami in April as part of an ongoing federal investigation carried out by a team that specializes in human trafficking crimes. In a December 2023 statement, Combs responded to the claims in some of the lawsuits, saying, "Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged."
Now, that Instagram post from Diddy was back in December. That was not in relation directly to Cassie. It was referencing many of these allegations and lawsuits that he faces. Now, I have reached out to Diddy's team. We have not heard back from them today. But Jake, I do want to point out there was a settlement deal between Diddy and Cassie. So neither of them can speak. But again, we're still waiting to hear back from his team. Now, a really great point that you brought up top, Jake, was what is going on in Diddy's world, right? We've all heard stories of Hollywood enablers and enablers in circles around powerful people. But something that I want to point out, Diddy is one of the most powerful people in music history. He is a mogul. We have not seen any support in Hollywood. All of his famous friends, since these allegations came forward, we have not seen anyone come to his defense, and that silence is very loud, Jake.
Yeah, Elizabeth Wagmeister, thank you so much. Incredible work by the LA Bureau. Let's discuss this with CNN's John Miller and Julie K. Brown, a Miami Herald investigative journalist who's been following this story, also best known perhaps for her work pursuing the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking story. So, John, Cassie filed her lawsuit in November. The feds raided Diddy's home in March. Now we see this awful video, which is more than 8 years old. And yet, Diddy has still not been charged with anything. I would think there would be grounds for his arrest in that video. Why hasn't he been charged with anything?
Well, the